So once you have Tyflow up and running in your 3ds Max, you can really achieve a lot of different things with it, and we'll get to it right away. So under standard primitives, you just select Tyflow and just place it in somewhere wherever you're comfortable with in your viewport. And in order to open the editor where you do most of the things, you have to go to the Modify tab and select Open Editor. So this will bring up a workspace. So this here, over here is your workspace, and underneath is listed all the different kinds of operators which can do various things, which we will soon find out. Before we get to it, I'm going to minimize or just reduce the size of this operating window so that this timeline I can work with easily, and I'll just move it to a side so it's not taking up so much space on the screen. Anyway, so once that is ready, one of the first operators that you have to use is birth over here. So in order to use the operator and bring it into your workspace, all you do is click it and drag it and just release anywhere you want on the workspace. So the first thing we have selected is birth, and on the right hand side of the Tyflow editor window, you will be able to see a lot more other parameters that you can adjust, which affects the output that you produce. So one of the things is the system is reading right now. It knows it has to birth particles, but however we have not provided any base as such where exactly it will give birth to the particles. So in order to establish that, you just go back to this and select the helpers, and from the drop down menu, instead of standard, select Tyflow and use the first object type, which is a tie icon. So what the tie icon is, this is the base or surface where the particles are going to take birth, and the system needs to be able to understand that. So for that you need to provide a position icon operator, which is over here. So you select the position icon, drag it and place it under birth. One thing, this is very crucial to remember if you're going to use Tyflow, is that the system reads the operators from the order they're placed in, so from top to bottom. So in this instance, what the system is reading is, first thing it has to give birth to a particles, and then the second thing it's reading is it has to give birth to those particles within a position icon which will be determined. And in order to determine the position icon or the specific surface, you click on that operator, select pick from the right side menu on the window, and just click anywhere on the tie icon that we just created a couple of seconds ago. So now the system knows this is exactly where it has to give birth to the particles. So if I move the timeline, you can see that the particles are being birthed, and they are being birthed inside this confined space, which is the tie icon. Now the particles, even though they're being born, they actually don't have any specific speed. So to make things a little more interesting, we can actually give speed to these particles. So I'll drag the speed operator from the list and place it under position icon. And in the speed operator parameters, you can really set many different things like magnitude. This will be the speed. So maybe for this video, I'll just place it 5, and the direction is given random. However, we want the particles to follow the direction of the arrow that comes with tie icon. So let's say along icon arrow, but then again, the system doesn't know which way the arrow is, so the particles are still like they were before we set this new operator. So what you have to do after you select which direction the particles are going to be flowing in, you have to click on pick and then just click anywhere on this arrow. Now the system knows that it has to birth the particles, and then it will move these particles to the direction that I have just specified, which is the direction of the arrow. You can reverse it, and what this will do is it will move the particles to the other direction of the arrow. So now you can see these particles are moving upwards. And you can play with the other parameters like the divergence. Maybe let's set it to 7, and the amount at which the particles diverge, it has increased. So one thing that we can do is we can actually change the shape of these particles that are now moving in the opposite direction of the tie icon arrow. And in order to do that, you select the shape operator from the operators list and just place it under speed, and you can select it to be a 3D shape, and let's say I want it to be any geometry from here. There's a huge selection, but for the purposes of this exercise I'm going to select maple leaves. And you can scale the objects, you can increase them in size. So let me say I'll make them 450%, so 4.5 times bigger than what it already is. And if I move the timeline, you'll notice nothing has changed. The shapes of the particles are still like small little dots like they were before. And this is because when I set the shape operator and make changes within the parameters, one other thing that I have to do is go back to display settings, and instead of small dots under type under display, you have to select geometry. So now the system knows, and it has picked up the specified parameter that the particles are going to look like maple leaves, and that's exactly what it's going to display. So now they're moving upwards. However, I want these leaves to fall as if they're falling from trees during autumn. So I go back to speed, uncheck the reverse, and now if I move the timeline, it looks like these maple leaves are falling at a particular speed from a tree.